The Moral Circle, Who Matters, What Matters, and Why by Peter Singer and expanding thinkers like Joshua Green and others, explores one of the most enduring and transformative ideas in ethical philosophy, the expansion of moral concern. The book's central metaphor, the moral circle, represents the boundary we draw around those beings we consider worthy of moral consideration. Singer's premise is that moral progress consists largely in the steady expansion of this circle, an idea with profound implications for how we treat animals, distant strangers, future generations, and even artificial intelligences. At its core, the book challenges the reader to reflect on the arbitrariness of current moral boundaries. For most of human history, moral concern was limited to a tribe, a family, or a small community. As civilization evolved, these boundaries stretched to include citizens of a nation, members of other races, and, eventually, all humans. Singer argues that this trajectory suggests a natural evolution toward moral universalism, where the suffering and well-being of all sentient beings are regarded as ethically relevant, regardless of species, geography, or temporal location. Singer anchors much of the book in the utilitarian tradition, drawing on the foundational insight of Jeremy Bentham that the capacity to suffer, not the ability to reason, speak, or otherwise resemble us, should determine moral worth. This idea undermines the human-centric worldview that dominates traditional ethics. If a pig, an elephant, or even a future digital mind can suffer, then it deserves a place within our moral circle. Singer brings this argument to life with vivid examples of factory farming, habitat destruction, and systemic neglect of non-human lives. The book is not merely philosophical, it is deeply practical. Singer and the thinkers he engages argue that expanding the moral circle must inform policy decisions, economic models, and social movements. From climate change to AI development, our failure to include non-obvious stakeholders has resulted in disastrous consequences. The book calls for a rethinking of moral responsibility, not just in abstract thought but in real-world action, where consequences unfold on a global and intergenerational scale. One of the key insights Singer emphasizes is that moral intuition evolved under conditions very different from modern society. Our ancestors lived in small, tight-knit groups where evolutionary success depended on cooperation within the group and distrust of outsiders. Today, that same psychological machinery can make it difficult to feel compassion for someone on the other side of the globe or a creature in a factory farm. Overcoming these inherited biases, Singer argues, is both possible and necessary. The book also delves into the role of reason in moral expansion. Singer defends the Enlightenment ideal that reason can correct the distortions of parochial emotion. By using reason to imagine ourselves in the place of. A significant portion of the book grapples with objections. Some critics argue that too broad a moral circle can paralyze moral action. If everyone matters, it can be hard to prioritize anyone. Singer responds that effective altruism, which he co-founded, offers a pragmatic solution. By using evidence and reason to determine where our efforts can do the most good, we can avoid paralysis while honoring a wide moral scope. He shows how donations, career choices, and political activism can all reflect expanded moral concern. The inclusion of future generations is one of the most compelling parts of the book. Singer argues that our current behavior, particularly around climate change and resource consumption, is ethically indefensible from a long-term perspective. Future humans, though not yet born, will suffer from our actions, and our moral reasoning must include them. This idea leads to calls for sustainability, international cooperation, and a new sense of planetary stewardship. The question of artificial intelligence and digital minds emerges in the latter part of the book. Singer provocatively asks whether entities that do not yet exist, such as sentient AIs, should be included in our moral thinking. He explores the possibilities that these beings may experience pleasure, pain, or preferences, and urges a precautionary approach. Ethics, in this vision, is not a fixed doctrine but a dynamic, forward-looking practice. The treatment of non-human animals continues to serve as a major through-line. Singer revisits his earlier work from Animal Liberation, showing how entrenched systems of exploitation persist despite rising awareness. He highlights the gap between belief and behavior, many people claim to care about animals but still support industries that harm them. The book urges individuals to align their actions with their values, through plant-based eating, conscious consumption, and advocacy. Cultural differences also receive attention. Singer is sensitive to the charge of moral imperialism but argues that certain ethical truths, such as the wrongness of suffering, transcend cultural boundaries. He presents moral progress not as the imposition of Western norms, but as the recognition of shared human and sentient needs. By rooting ethics in suffering and flourishing, rather than tradition or identity, Singer builds a more inclusive moral framework. Throughout the book, Singer draws on psychology, neuroscience, and evolutionary biology to bolster his arguments. He acknowledges that humans are not purely rational beings, and that empathy alone often fails to motivate broad concern. Yet he remains optimistic that education, institutional design, and social norms can help people care more widely and effectively. He cites examples like the rise in veganism, global humanitarian aid, and environmental movements as signs of moral expansion in action. The narrative is not utopian. Singer is clear-eyed about the resistance to moral progress. Self-interest, inertia, and tribalism are powerful forces. But he argues that history shows a general trend toward greater moral inclusion, even if progress is uneven. The expansion of the moral circle is portrayed as a struggle, often slow and contested, but ultimately achievable through persistent advocacy and structural change. Singer also explores the emotional and existential implications of moral expansion. Recognizing that everyone matters changes how one sees the world, one's role in it, and the nature of purpose. Many find this perspective overwhelming, but Singer suggests that it can also be empowering. Living a life guided by inclusive compassion and reasoned action provides a deep sense of meaning and connection to something larger than oneself. In the final chapters, Singer calls for a dual approach: personal transformation and collective reform. Individuals must strive to extend their compassion beyond immediate circles, but societies must also build systems that reward rather than punish moral concern. He argues for global institutions, legal protections, and moral education that promote this expansion of care. Ultimately, the moral circle is a call to moral imagination. It challenges readers to look beyond proximity, familiarity, and species in deciding who matters. By anchoring ethics in shared experiences of suffering and joy, and by harnessing reason to extend empathy, the book offers a vision of ethical life that is both aspirational and grounded. Singer's enduring message is that the future of moral progress lies in our willingness to redraw the circle, again and again, until no sentient being is left outside.